Good morning. Hopefully, your favorite real estate broker. All right, my friends. Well, today I wanted to go over some seller tips, and the main reason for that is it's absolutely beautiful, beautiful weather here today in Connecticut. I heard it's supposed to get a little bit rough this evening, but right now it is absolutely gorgeous. And so there might be some people, which I know two people in particular, right, that they're actually thinking about selling their properties and they're working on their properties on the exterior today, right? So who doesn't love that? I mean, they're working on their exterior today, getting ready here in central Connecticut area. So what I thought it was would be a great idea too is kind of it's a little bit of a continuation of what I did before, and it's kind of to go over some of the tips, right? Some of the seller tips that I put together that are insider secrets, right? And you might be like, oh, come on, Rob, what are you talking about? Insider secrets. There aren't. Well, I can tell you right now, there are insider secrets. There are ways to market your property that really only a motivated, a caring, um, an experienced marketing person like myself will be able to help you with, because you see these are things that you don't do necessarily on an everyday basis. So if I was in your job, like you might be a nurse or an accountant or a dentist or an analyst, and I might think that I know your job in a moment because I have all this corporate experience and I've been to school and I talk with a lot of people, and might be thinking, hey, I know exactly what you do. But do I really know those insider tips? Do I really know what it is that you're doing in your job on a day to day basis? I highly doubt it, my friends. And so, right now, that's why I thought it would be live. And I'm going live on quite a few different stations, whether it's on Facebook, so I appreciate you there. It's on LinkedIn, it's on Twitter, it's on YouTube, right? Come check out my YouTube page, smartreadvice.com, and even on TikTok, which I have enjoyed tremendously. And I have goals for likes for that. So if you like what you see, if you're like what you're hearing, definitely please make a comment and let's talk, right? So, let's talk about some of these tips. Right. Let's talk about how, if you like what you're hearing, I will be able to share a book, my book with you, right? Selling secrets you can't afford to miss. So all you need to do is reach out to me. I do have it in my bio. I did put it in the description of this live as well. And all you need to do is feel free. Thank you so much for liking it, Nigro and Jaja and Alberto and Jenna and Jean and Alberto. So thank you so much for your comments and whatever questions you have. You see, this is why I like to do the live. Of course, I love the likes. Who doesn't love the likes? But you see, I figure let's have a hometown discussion, right? As I'm going through things, you might have questions about your home. You might have questions about what you want to do in order to be able to get those secrets, in order to sell your property at the most money possible in the best. You see, I don't always say the fastest. I mean, if the fastest is great for you, let's go for it. But if it means the best time frame for you, so maybe you need some extra time. Maybe you need 2 months. Maybe you need 3 months. Maybe you are waiting until the fall. That's okay with me. I'm here to help you. Okay. So where we're going to start off, and some of this information, like I said, is coming from my book, is ensuring you have room to negotiate. Okay. When we talk about real estate. So before settling, number one, on your asking price, make sure that you have room to bargain. And before you're settling on that asking price, did you do a professional or have done a professional comparative market analysis? I mean, it's important not to rush to a decision and to try to understand, well, how are you going to negotiate this particular situation? Are you going to be able to are you going to want to just put out the highest price possible and wait and see what happens and then have all kinds of people looking at the property but too afraid to make an offer, or looking at it online and too afraid to come and look. You see, that doesn't usually help you out, right? So we, as being an experienced real estate broker over 22 years, we want to motivate people to come to that property. You see, the kind of like some of the look the metrics that we look at. And here's a little secret for you, right? For every 1,000 views we have online, we want to make sure that we have a showing. Now, if we're not getting those showings, you might not have known that metric, because we're out there. If you're someone like me, I'm out there. I'm advertising it on Zillow. I'm advertising it on Facebook, Realtor.com, Trulia. I mean, 80 different websites, right? And so I'm getting thousands of hits. But if I'm not getting any showings, what's it telling me? It's telling me that right from the start, we have a problem with the price, or it could be the condition of the property. You see, if a property's not in great condition, a lot of times I'm not able to take as many pictures that I want to. I'm not able to do that full marketing and put out a website and do a tour, and like have it the home, have that property, whether it's commercial or residential, have it so that it has its own website. Right. So I want to be able to do that. But if the property is not in great condition, how can I do that? Right. So we have to make sure that the price matches the property, and then we can promote it to its max. Right. So for example, when we talk about ensuring you have room to negotiate, are you having discussion with your real estate broker about what's the high and what's the low? What are you willing to do? Right? What are you willing to do? What are your priorities to know what your maximum profit is? Right? Do you know your net estimate take home? Right? Because you might be thinking, well, you know what? As long as I can sell this property and take home $200,000, I'm going to be happy. Right? And that sounds great. Don't get me wrong. Maybe you want 300, maybe you want 400. But did you have somebody actually put together? Like, for example, I have hey, Dave, thank you so much for saying that, my friend. I really appreciate you. That's an excellent comment. And one of the things is Dave's an awesome guy. I work on referrals. Right. That's the heart of my business, repeat business and referrals. And so when I see something like, Dave put best realtor, well, I know he's out there telling people about me. So I definitely appreciate that, because they know that when you refer someone to me, I'm going to treat them like gold. I'm going to embarrass them. I know some of us are afraid of referring people because we're afraid they might not come through. Well, guess what? I'm going to come through. I'm going to do the best I can. Is it that I can help 100%? No, sometimes there's people that I can't necessarily help, but I'm going to put my best foot forward and I'm going to do what I promise. Right. All right. So anyways, thank you so much, Dave. Making sure that you have room to negotiate, understanding what your seller net estimate is, right? Thank you so much, Lakey. I appreciate you joining us. All right. Number 2 that I wanted to go over today is that, guess what? Appearances do matter. Make them count. Even today, it took me a good 20 minutes or so to, even longer for grooming and so forth, but that's an everyday thing, right? But it took me 20 minutes to try to make sure I can have the best lighting possible that I can do, with this particular scenario. I wanted to make sure my screens, everything, the lens are nice and clean. I wanted to make sure that I'm centered here in the screen. I want to make sure that I got the right height, right? So even for me doing this video, appearances count. For me coming to your house, and talking with you, I want to make sure appearances count. I'm going to put the best foot forward. And it's the same thing when you're selling your property, right? Appearance is so critical that it would be unwise to ignore it when you're selling your home. The look and the feel of your home needs to generate a greater emotional response than anything else, right? Otherwise, I can tell you straightforward, we can just sell homes on the internet. And sometimes we do. Don't get me wrong. I've had a couple of transactions here in Connecticut where the people lived in South Carolina and they were just looking at the pictures. And then I did a walkthrough with the video, did a virtual tour with them, right? Went over everything with them, and they ended up buying the house. And that happened maybe 3 times last year. But for the most part, let's just say 98, 99% of the time, prospective buyers, what do they want to do? Right? We know about our senses. They want to see, they want to hear, right? They want to feel, and they want to smell. They want to smell the home. They want to feel the home. They want to understand the home. What's the vibe of the home? And in a weird, hokey way, and I apologize if you feel this way after I say it, I am like that 1000%. I can look at a home and think it's so beautiful. I get out of the car and I'm like, oh my gosh, this home is beautiful. I would love for my family and I to be living here. Hey, Jules, thank you so much for joining us. And then I open up, and then I get to the front door and I open up the storm door, and right away you get a little weird smell. And you see that the front door is needs to be painted, right? And it's dirty, and the doorknob's kind of dirty. And this might be a $500,000 home, 700,000, $1 million home. And then I walk in. I've been in $1 million homes that I wouldn't want to live in. Some of them are disgusting, right? Because the smell, the feel, what you see is not what you thought. It turns out to be a big disappointment. Hey, Carla, thank you so much for joining us. And again, all of you, I appreciate your likes and your comments. Please feel free to ask any questions that you would like. So remember, appearances do matter. Next one, invite the honest opinions of others. Oh, man. You know, nobody likes opinions. Everybody gets mad. They're like, why are you judging me? Right? Thank you, Jaja, for the comments. Why are you judging me? Well, you know what? You need people to judge your home. You need people to look at your home and be objective about it before we put it out there. In fact, we will even do a pricing committee test run with your home if you allow me to, if that's something that you want me to do. I have a team, which I am definitely proud to announce that in 2022, my team, the Rosa team, great people, and this is in the large team category because we are a large team, that we are in the top 0.5% of the entire Berkshire Hathaway Home Services network. You're talking over 50,000 agents, give or take, right? And so we are what they call diamond circle, right? Which is in the top 0.5%. So this team, when I get them going, guess what? They're ready to roll. So if I'm like, hey, team, we have a home to do a pricing committee walkthrough on, do a test run on, and I can very easily get 2, 3, 4, or 6 of my team members. I might have to buy them lunch, but that'll be on me, right? To do a walkthrough of your property and to do a test run and to be judgmental, to be real with you. You see, when you have a good agent, they're not looking to give you baloney. They're not looking to just try to get the listing. They want to sell it for you with your expectations. So you need people who are going to be objective about your home's beautiful, great points, which I'm sure there's plenty of them, and about the ones that are not so good. Right? And so fortunately, again, in a respectful way, I will not be bashful about discussing those ideas with you. I will not be bashful about showing you and telling you, hey, these are the things that will make your home more marketable. These are the things that will get you more money. I will not be bashful about going over that with you. Hey, Sashi and Roblox, thank you so much for joining us. Right? So please, as we're going through this, any questions you have, let me know. All right. Get it spick and span and fix everything, even if it seems insignificant. Now you might be like, "Oh, what's the secret of that, Rob?" There's no secret to that. I knew that one. Okay, well, if you knew it, right? If you know it, then why is it that I go to so many homes and they are not spick and span, right? They have greasy countertops, right? There's stains on the walls, and I'm talking about some expensive homes, right? So, what do we need to do? And I will do a room by room preview with you. We need to scrub it. We need to scour it. We need to tidy it up. We need to straighten it up. We need to get rid of the clutter. We need to declare war on dust for a lot of reasons. Number one, I'm allergic to dust, and I don't want to be walking through a home that is very dusty, but a lot of other people like that. We need to repair squeaks. Now, I have a home, my wife and I, and we have some hardwood floors and they squeak. And guess what? I love it because I know where people are in the home. You see, I like the squeaks. I'm not fixing them. But if I was going to put the home on the market, I would have to be fixing those squeaks, right? We have to fix those little things that we let go, and we all do it in our homes, right? We're talking about that light switch that doesn't work. We're talking about the tiny crack in the bathroom mirror. We're talking about the deal killers, those little things that people look at and now they're not interested in your home, and they might not even be able to put a their finger on it. They might not understand, why don't I like this home? There's something about it. But all these things are playing in their senses. They walk in, it doesn't smell right, it feels dirty, this is a little bit broken, that's a little bit broken, right? So get spick and span clean, fix everything, even if it seems insignificant. That is a huge tip that I'm sure you're aware of, but it's very, very important. Next one, allow prospective buyers to visualize themselves in your home. This one is interesting, and I want to explain it the right way. And I might get some people mad at me, right? But I'm going to tell the truth of how I really feel. Hey, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. Hey, Yusuf, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your likes, appreciate any comments that you have. Well, staging to me is fake. It looks good on the surface, but I walk through with buyers, and what do they feel? They feel faked out. They might like it a little bit sometimes, but you know what they really love? You know what a buyer loves? A home that's prepared to sell. You see, we don't want to make the home make believe. We don't want to make the home feel as though, oh, people are opening up the refrigerator, not to look at the refrigerator, but to look if somebody really lives here or if it's staged. We want to make the home prepared to sell. So we want people to feel like when they're walking in your home, they're maybe learning a little bit about you and that you're for real, the home's for real. And but at the same time, it's not too unique because that will kill it. So we don't want things like too many knickknacks hanging around, right? We want the home to be decorated in neutral colors, of course, because it just shows better, whether it's white or tan or beige. And if there's a few carefully chosen items to add warmth and character, then that's great, right? Enhancing your home, a well placed vase of flowers, potpourri in the bathroom, home decor magazines, make them feel excited about being in that home, make them see where they can put their couch, where their end table is going to go, where their bedroom set is going to be. But you don't have to necessarily spend thousands of dollars for staging, because it does get to the point where if something's overstaged, it turns buyers off, believe it or not. And here's a quick story, right? The quick story is that there was a home that was staged, and that was great, and it was beautiful, and it made these people want to put together an offer, right? And we're talking about when we walked in, you had the vanilla scent, Everything was great. And then there was also, you walk into the kitchen and there were freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. And then you look over at the fireplace, and you know those birchwood trees, the logs of the birchwood tree, right? Well, you would see that birchwood burning, and it's crackling, and they're excited about the home, and everything is perfect. So they decide to make an offer. But before they finalize the offer, hey, Andy, hey, Madison, thank you so much for joining us. Before they finalize the offer, what do? They say, let's go back one more time, right? We want to bring our friend, and the friend is kind of like an inspector type of person. So a week later, maybe it was like 5, 6 days later, we go back, and guess what? It's all the same story. The vanilla scent is going strong. Freshly baked cookies on the counter. The birch tree logs are burning. Everything is perfect. And you know what the inspector said? He looked at over at the buyers and he says, I wonder what they are hiding, because this home is staged too good. Why would they do this exactly like this again for a second showing? It almost doesn't make sense. And they knew it was we were the only showing for that day, because I said, well, I mean, one of the buyers said, well, maybe they're having other showings today too. And I asked the seller, I'm like, hey, is there anything we should know about the home? And she's like, well, they did do a lot of repairs and there has been a lot of upgrades. I said, did they have any other showings today, or was it just us? Oh, it was just you. And guess what? The inspector, he found all kinds of stuff wrong with the house. So we have to be careful almost about overstaging. I mean, that's a huge point that people don't necessarily realize, of what can happen if you're not preparing the house correctly and being honest and straightforward. Hey, Akon. Hey, Miriam. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely appreciate all your likes, everyone. And definitely please feel free to make any comments you'd like, and I'd love to be able to address them. All right. So we talked about deal killers, like deal killer odors, right? I have a dog. He's actually sitting over here. Well, he's over there. Don't tell my wife he's on the couch, which she doesn't like that. Right? He's a little guy though, and he's like 12 years old. So I try to be soft with him, because you never know how much longer they're going to be around. I love this little guy, right? But guess what? Sometimes he doesn't smell the greatest, right? And I have to make sure I get him a bath and get him groomed, right? And so these odd smells, they can turn off a buyer pretty darn quick. If you decide you're going to smoke in your home, right? That can turn off a buyer pretty darn quick. If they're seeing stains of smoke, if they're seeing stains from pets and odors and all that good stuff, that's going to turn off a buyer pretty darn quick. All right, my friends, let's go on to the next point. All right. Hey, Rundown, thank you so much for joining us. Recon Player 17, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you, and thank you so much for your likes and so forth. All right. Before we go on to the next one, let me just, again, this is free to you. I'd love to be able to share a copy to you. My secret selling secrets you can't afford to miss, right? And so I did put in my bio, I can give you a free digital copy if you're out of state, out of Connecticut. Definitely, that's no problem. Or if you want a printed copy, we can definitely meet up for coffee. If you're here in Connecticut, coffee, breakfast, lunch, I'd love to sit down with you, even for a couple of minutes, and talk, right? All right. Being a smart seller. That's what we're talking about, really, when it comes down to it. And one of those things is being proactive, disclosing what we know about the property, right? This will, I promise you, number one, it always makes you feel better when you're honest. We don't want to put the money first. Yes, of course, money's important. The closing's important. Getting you to where you want to be is so very important. However, we don't want to do it and be a cheater. We don't want to be a liar, right? So we're going to disclose what we know about the property. And then in the long run, well, what's that going to do for us? That is going to reduce liability and prevent lawsuits later on in this whole story, right? You see, that way we don't have any problems. We don't have to feel, we don't have to walk around with our heads down thinking, oh man, if they find this out or find that out, there's going to be a problem. You see, we don't want to have to worry about that. So smart sellers are honest and they're proactive in disclosing things. So maybe here's an example. Maybe that during the springtime, after all that snow melts, which if you're in Connecticut these days, there's no snow. It's the weirdest winter ever, right? Well, the whole point is, though, most of the time, there's a couple inches of snow. And what happens? It starts melting in the springtime, right? Or it starts melting when it gets warmer. And maybe in your basement, that causes a problem, right? Maybe you have some seepage, right? Well, let's disclose that. Hey, there is slight seepage after a snow melt. As simple as that. There is a slight leak in the corner of the home during heavy rains, right? Or maybe the hot water tank is at the end of its useful life and you only get hot water for about 15 minutes. Be honest, be straightforward. Why go through all the trouble? And you see, what happens is that sellers don't realize they usually lose out when they're not honest. Because what happens? We put the property on the market, right? Hey, Panda. Hey, Foco. Thank you so much for joining us, right? We put the property on the market. We're going 100 miles an hour. We're spending all kinds of time and money, usually my money, to market it, right? And we have a momentum going. How's that for a cup? That cup is pretty cool, right? So we have this property on the market. We have a momentum going. It's just like when you're running, right? Or in my case, when you're jogging, you're jogging. You don't want to stop because it's easier just to keep on going, right? Now, all of a sudden, we put the property on the market. I mean, we put the property under deposit. We take a purchase and sale agreement and it's under contract. Woo! Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're going to be moving by March 1st. It's under contract. We're excited. This is awesome. Yes. Now the buyer wants to do an inspection, right? And what do they find? This wrong, that wrong, the other thing wrong. And then they don't trust you because they're like, hey, I think the seller knew about this. I think the seller knew about that. And what happens? Either they want a lot more money, they want things to repaired. Maybe you were not willing to repair them right from the start. You were not straightforward. You were not upfront. And what happens? The property comes off the market. And guess what, Rob Rosa, or an inexperienced agent who doesn't know exactly what to do, guess what they have to start doing? We have to start all the marketing all over again, right? And we got to get ready to start jogging again and start running, right? And doesn't it take time and energy and money to build up momentum? Of course it does, right? Of course it does. So you don't want to have that happen to you. So one of our big tips is to be a smart seller and disclose everything. It will help you out in the long run. And in the hokey way that I like to talk sometimes, guess what? It gives you good karma. It comes back to you the right way for being the right way. All right, my friend. Next tip, it's better with more prospects, right? It's better with more prospects. Get this book, it talks a little bit about it. When you maximize your home's marketability, you will definitely attract more than one prospective buyer in most cases, right? And I'm talking about maximizing things. So, what is maximizing marketability? That means the price is right. That means that the product is right, which that home is right. It's in good condition. It doesn't smell. You're disclosing everything. You have room to negotiate. It's clean. You've done a little bit. You've done a lot of preparing. You're making it happen the right way. Hey, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely appreciate it. All right. So when you maximize it, you're going to have more than one prospective buyer. Now, as you probably realize, it's definitely much, much better to have more than one prospective buyer. Well, why would you want more than one prospective buyer? Well, as you're probably understanding, is that when we have buyers, more than one buyer, what can we do? Right? We can work them against each other, right? We can help to bid up the price more, right? We can make them compete with each other. Who doesn't want to have, if you're selling something, don't you want buyers competing against it? Because when you have buyers competing against it, what happens? Oh, and that's when I really get to work. That's one of my next steps. That's the next phase. All right, we did all this marketing. We spent time, we spent money, we spent Rob Rosa's money on marketing this thing to the max. And now we have multiple buyers. And that's when I start saying, all right, well, we have these multiple buyers. Let me start calling up these buyers. Let me start calling up these agents. Hey, here we are with the pricing. Here's how much we're at. What can you do? Are you willing to waive inspections? Are you willing to give us a higher down payment? Are you willing to waive appraisal? Are you willing to close at the best time frame for my seller? You see, that's when I'm going to really be able to go to work for you, right? Because we are going to have buyers competing against each other. Isn't that awesome? I mean, give me some likes for that. I want if I had like the applause button, I would be clicking that. Applause, 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 right? Because we want to have those buyers competing against each other. All right, next tip I have, keeping emotions in check during negotiations. Keeping emotions in check. Hey, Glenn, thank you so much. Bixa, Random, thank you so much. Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us. And I appreciate all of you. Any likes you have, if you want to share this live, I appreciate that. If you have friends or family that can use some help, definitely, let me know or let them know. I'd be love to be able to work with them. Now, keeping emotions in check. Let go of the emotion you've invested in your home. I know it's easier said than done. You might be like, yeah, but Rob, I can't do that because, this is where the kids grew up. This is where I grew up. I mean, I had someone last year where both of their parents passed away in a matter of months. And you know what? I felt for them. They were like old high school. There was an old high school friend. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would do. I don't know if I can really even handle that. I guess, they say we only get, from the Lord what we can handle, right? Where both of his parents passed away in a matter of months. And so he had to sell the property. Right. And so, of course, I walked through the home. I felt the emotion. I felt what he was going through a little bit. Right. But we have to, especially if that's not the case, what do we have to do? Well, we have to make sure that we are detaching ourselves from some of those emotions, right? We want to make sure that we are being as businesslike as possible, because guess what? We're going to have to do some hardcore negotiations, right? We want to make sure that we're going to have that advantage over some of those buyers who are going to get emotional. Okay. So that's pretty darn important. And you'll definitely, if you listen to that advice, you're definitely going to be able to have an advantage of over those that get caught up emotionally in a situation. All right. So that's important. Okay. Keeping emotions in check. All right. Next one. We need to learn why our buyers are motivated. And I'll tell you that that goes on the other side too. I mean, we're not going over buyer tips, but these are things I teach the buyer, right? And these are things I teach my team. Why is our buyer motivated? Insider secret tip. Are we finding that out? Why are we just taking offers if we don't know why the buyer's motivated, right? Are they looking to just buy the cheapest house that they can, the best affordable property for them? Or do they need to move in quickly, right? Are they looking to flip it? What are they looking to do? So, as a rule, um, when we're armed with this information, right, we are in a much, much better position to bargain, right? We're going to be able to bargain more by knowing why our buyers are looking to buy, right? Understanding what they're looking to do and why. Okay. All right. What can the buyer really pay? Oh, man. I don't want to give away all my secrets because I know we got some people here listening to exactly figuring out, okay, well, what does Rob do and how does he do it? But I can tell you, being in the business for 22 years, I know a lot of people, right? And I ask a lot of questions, right? I ask a lot of questions to a lot of people, right? In the during the transaction. And so one of the questions I'm going to be able to try to figure out, and I want to be able to tell my seller this, is, learn about, of course, what kind of mortgage they're going to get, right? What kind of mortgage is the buyer going to get? Hey, Kitty, thank you so much for joining us. Laura, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely appreciate it. And how much their down payment is and why, right? And what is their ability to pay? Do you know how many times I can't tell you enough times as to um, how I did research for my seller to find out, is the buyer going to have a problem? Are we going to have any issues here with this particular buyer on getting pre approved or pre qualified? And come to find out, this buyer wasn't able to buy. Come to find out, they weren't even approved to their approval wasn't even updated to buy the home. So why am I going to waste that time with that particular buyer, with my seller? Because my seller is just going to get put in a bad position. You see, that's risk mitigation, right? Me doing the homework first, not being inexperienced, right? And just willing to take the fastest first offer, but actually being responsible to follow up and to get you, meaning the seller, the information that they need. Okay. When would the buyer like to close, right? When do they need to close? When can they close? How about the time that I was selling a property and we asked the buyer, okay, is it contingent? I mean, okay, we see here that you own a home. Is it contingent upon you selling this particular home? Oh, no, no, no. They're giving us every line in the book. They're giving us every line in the book to get their offer accepted, right? And then I kind of know the mortgage person. And I ask the mortgage person and I say to them, did you check their bank accounts? You don't have to give me numbers. You don't have to give me confidential info. But if you want more business from me, Mr. Mortgage person, did you check their bank accounts? Are they really going to be able to close without selling their home? Because I think they're trying to sell their home overpriced. It's been on the market for, maybe 10 days over the average, 20 days over the average, I think it was. And I don't think they're going to be able to sell their house in time in order to buy this house, but they don't want to put in a contingency. And he came back and he said, you know what, Rob, I'm not trying to make transactions fall apart. At the same time, this one's probably going to. And you know what? I did not stop my momentum. We didn't accept that offer. We didn't put on a deposit because if we would have just been hurting ourselves. And that's not nice to do business that way. right? I mean, I know they say, oh, it's, we don't have to always make it an us versus them. We're trying to help each other get to where we need to be with the best terms possible, but we don't have to make it into a negative situation. Okay. And so to me, that's always really, really important because I want you as my client. Yes, I want you to make out, great. I want you to be happy. I want you to be excited. Hey, Papa Dia, thank you so much for joining us. Hey, Luma, thank you so much for joining us. Right. Again, I appreciate all your likes that you have and any comments. Right. Because like I said, we're on different social media streamings. And so any comments that you have, hopefully I can see them, and I want to let you know that I'd love to be able to answer any questions you have. But we don't need to make it an us versus them. We can make it into a positive, smooth transaction that, guess what, you're happy about when everything's said and done. All right. Never sign a deal on your next home until you sell your current home. Well, I don't know if I necessarily believe in that tip that exact way. Now, there are some sellers who believe that, but one of the things that I can tell you is that if we have to sell your home, be ready to sell it in order to buy another piece of property. Be ready to have it priced correctly, right? Never be willing to say, well, you know what? We're just going to go out and we're going to go shopping for another home. Let's sell our house, but we're not ready to put it on the market yet. Let's just go out shopping for another home before we actually put ours on the market. I can tell you that's a recipe for disaster. And that's like, doing the catch 22, because you're going to find a home that you love. It might even be your dream home. It might be the home that you love, that you've been dreaming of, which is the reason why you want to sell your property. And so you're like, Rob, let's make an offer. I'm ready, man. I want to make this happen. But we have to make it contingent upon you selling your home. And you didn't even put your home on the market yet. It wasn't prepared. Maybe I might have been sending you tips. I have like 87 tips that I can send over like a year and a half basis, right? A little drip program that says, hey, this week, this is something you might want to look at if you're thinking about selling your home. And if you ignored every one of those tips until the day that you found your dream home, well, you might be in rough shape. And I'm going to feel bad. I'm not going to tell you I told you so, but I can tell you I told you so right here in the video. Right? Or I might not say it to your face because I don't want to get into any arguments. I want to avoid some conflict. But I'm telling you right now, right? Make sure you're getting your home ready. Okay. Hey, working man, Mr. Bobo, Kristen, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you. Appreciate everyone who's watching. Definitely appreciate any likes and shares as well. All right. All right. So, next tip, moving out before you sell might put you at a disadvantage. Yes, that's a tip that you might want to know about. It's definitely much better if you have to move out. It's understandable. There's sometimes things happen, right? But it's definitely better to sell your home when you live in it if your furniture is at least average, if your hygiene and your cleaning habits are at least average, right? Because otherwise, when people look at vacant homes, it's definitely not as good, right? Especially if you're not going to go in there and paint and clean up afterwards. All right. Deadlines. Next tip, deadlines, putting a line in the sand, making specific demands like it's this way or that's it. Hey, Fredo, thank you, my friend. I definitely appreciate you. In any kind of, hey, Fizzy, Nia, thank you so much for joining us. In any kind of negotiations, maybe it's a negotiations for your business. Maybe it's negotiations in your relationship for something with your wife, your husband, your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it might be. Putting lines in the sand like that, unless it's something that you're willing to, that's it. Don't do it because more often than not, it really will not help you during the negotiation process. So I have some sellers, that say, you tell them I'm going to come down $10,000 no matter, and that's it. No matter what, I'm not going down any lower. Ba, 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 ba. Right now, remember, that's the first phase of things when you come up with a new offer. Okay. And I tell them, I don't think it's a good idea. Maybe we try to keep it open. Let's negotiate a little bit more. Let's talk. We don't have to put a line. No, you tell them. All right. So I'm going to be obedient, right? I'm going to listen to you. And I'm going to tell them the seller said $10,000 and that's it. He's not going down any lower. Otherwise, the deal's off and he's just going to find another buyer. So then what does the buyer come back? Well, can you ask him if he'll do 12,000 more often than not, especially if it's more of an expensive home on the higher end of things? Of course. What's the big? I mean, don't get me wrong. $2,000 is $2,000. That's important to me. I mean, you give me $20, I'm going to be happy, right? But in most cases, when it comes to the transaction, all right, tell them $2,000. So now they sign the agreement. What did the buyer learn about you? Right? The buyer learns that if they push you the right way, they're going to get what they want. And so that's why I explained to sellers in the very beginning, don't do it. And 99% of the time, 98% of the time, the sellers will listen to me during, what I explained to them during the negotiation process to help themselves. It's not to necessarily help me. And you might be like, well, Rob, you make more money, if it sells for $2,000 higher. Of course I do, but it's not significant in my life. What's significant in my life is to help you get the best situation for you, to get you where you want to be so that you can tell people how much I helped you. That's really what I want to do. So please, you want an insider tip, a negotiating tip that's worth thousands of dollars, what I just told you, is don't put deadlines. Don't put the line in the sand unless you're ready to die on that line. Unless no matter what, like even if that buyer came back and said, well, how about 10,500 instead of 10,000? You would have to be like, no, 10,000 and that's it, or walk away. If you're not willing to walk away, don't make that particular threat. Don't put that deadline out there. Okay. Here's another seller tip. And again, thank you so much, all of you who are watching. Of course, your likes and your shares are important. As a reminder, I have my book that I put out there, Selling Secrets You Can't Afford to Miss. And you're definitely more than welcome to ask me for a copy of it. I'll give you a complimentary copy. Some people have gotten mad at me already saying, why aren't you selling it? Well, I am kind of selling it. I mean, it is worth, we came up with a price of $19.99, and there's been a few people who have paid for it, but I'm not looking to be, Stephen King, right? I'm looking to help people. Right. And so that's why I put this book out there. And I don't mind sharing a complimentary copy with you because, what I believe, the more that I give, the more that I'm going to receive. So I'm not so worried about making all kinds of money off of real estate books right now. Okay. So the next tip is a low offer. Seller tips, industry secrets that I'm sharing with you. Hey, DJ, thank you. Jillian, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely appreciate all your likes, everyone. Low offer. Don't take it personally. A lot of times, and again, that's a negotiating tactic on the buyer's part. They might not even understand how they're doing it and what they're doing, right? But they're reframing things by making an initial low offer, right? And sometimes they're doing it just to find out how you will respond. Do you know that years ago I was selling this plaza in Hartford, Connecticut, and we had a couple offers that we were working on, and then all of a sudden we had a third person who came along, and he was making lowball offers, right? And now I had never met this person face to face; it was just a phone situation. Right. And he's like, well, I want to make an offer. I don't even need to look at it. I'm from New York and blah, 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 blah. And I can tell you, I got the vibe. Something told me that he was working in cahoots with one of the other buyers that we were negotiating with just to see how low we would go. Because I kind of had like, I told one of those other buyers, hey, we have a third buyer who's come along. Oh, yeah. Well, what are they offering? And then, well, where are they from? And, just kind of like the way that he behaved, because I was with him personally. And guess what? I would looked at his eyes, right? I looked at his eyes and I mentioned it to him. And what did he do? He was like looking down, and I got the vibe they knew each other. And so, you know what? We cut off communications totally with that buyer who was making lowball offers. But I talked to my seller and I said, listen, I found this out for us, what I believe, right? But don't be upset as far as these people who are making these lowball offers, because sometimes you do need to negotiate with them. And when they try to reframe it, well, here's the other negotiating tip I'm going to share with you. Here's an insider secret. Always make a counter. A lot of times sellers don't want to listen to me, right? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And they're like, I'm not making any counter. No way, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, how about if we counter, $500 off our asking price? Yeah, but they want $40,000 off our asking price. They're crazy. I'm not giving them 40,000. I said, I didn't say we give them 40,000, but let's show them that we'll negotiate. Let's counter $500 off our asking price. Well, they're not going to take that, I know, but they're trying to reframe what the property is worth. If we believe the property is worth up here, and that's how much we're asking, and then they come up with a low ball, right? And then we start working with them. You see, they've reframed it all the way down. So we're going to say, okay, you know what? We'll work with you. We'll play your game. Yeah, you know what? Maybe the sidewalk does need a little bit. Will come down $500, and then the buyer is off of their game. Right? The starting point is different again. Okay. Or we can also work on negotiating other points, right? Maybe the deposit, maybe the amount of down payment, maybe the closing date, maybe any special requests, contingencies, and so forth. Okay. So what we do is we turn that low offer around, right? This lets the buyer know, hey, we're taking you seriously, even though in the background we're really not, and that we're only willing to negotiate seriously. Unless something really is crazy with the property, we're not going to come down 50 grand or whatever it might be. We're not going to come down 35% off of our asking price. Okay. All right. Next selling tip, which we talked a little bit about, but I have it listed here in my book, about the buyer being qualified. That's something that we're always going to look at. That's something that I'm always going to talk about, that I'm going to follow up with the lender and find that out. Next tip, making sure the contract is complete. So this one's interesting. And I can tell you, it's a very, very aggravating scenario for me. Hey, Illinois Gaming, thank you so much. Hey, F4 Panda, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely appreciate anybody's likes. Definitely appreciate anyone's shares. And then, of course, if you have any comments that you want to make or questions, I'd love to answer them for you. But let's talk about contracts. Like I was beginning to say, I'm supposed to be a nice guy, and I try to be a nice guy, and I think I am a nice guy for the most part, and I help a lot of people. But I don't like doing other people's jobs. And so more often than not, there's a lot of agents, right, that they don't fill out the contracts completely. Maybe there's and I'm not saying mistakes, because I make mistakes. I forget a signature here or there, but guess what? I pretty much know how to fill out the contract. I'm going to make sure that the the purchase price and the deposit amount and the loan approval and the contract dates and the contingencies are put in there and the personal property is put in there and that the addresses are put in there and so forth, because these are important things in order to get a contract signed. But more often than not, numbers are in wrong places. There aren't contingencies put in there. So I mean, I actually, there's one time where the agent or the buyer's agent, they didn't check off anything about inspections. They didn't check anything off. And so the seller accepted the offer. And then, of course, they wanted to do inspections, and seller said no. And it became a big issue. And they said, well, we just forgot to check it off. Now, are they lying? Are they telling the truth? Was there just a mistake? So these are all the crazy things that can happen when people are not filling out contracts correctly. So what I do is, before I actually have you sign it, I'm going to have a discussion with the buyer's agent. I'm going to talk with them about the offer they're making for your property, because I, again, don't want to put you at a disadvantage. I want to know all the information about that property. I want to understand how the buyer is going to buy it, what their expectations are, so that we can make it go through as smooth as possible for you. Okay. And then lastly, that I'm going to go over today, and again, I definitely appreciate all of you, is deviating from the agreement, last minute especially, right? So when they're at the last minute saying, well, can you do this? Can you do that? Oh, I want this included, that included. More often than not, it's a good idea just to say no. Don't complicate. Once we have a signed agreement, we do not want to complicate it. That whole thing about KISS, right? Keep it simple, Sam. I don't want to say the word stupid, right? But keep it simple, right? We want to keep it as simple as possible. We don't want to all of a sudden, the buyer and the seller start arguing about the couch or the bedroom set, and now the whole transaction for the real estate property falls apart. You see, that won't make sense. That's not, you're not hiring someone like me who's going to be serious about trying to get you the best deal and making it as smooth as possible. You're not hiring somebody like me in order to negotiate, how much your John Deere tractor is worth, right? Put it on Facebook Marketplace if that's what you want to. I don't know about selling John Deere tractors. I can get involved with it and help you with that. But sometimes I'm going to tell you, listen, let's wait. Let's not go down that road, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, and start talking about these personal items when we want to focus on selling your property, your home, for the most money possible. All right. So I went about an hour today. So I'm pretty much going to wrap things up. I do want to tell you once again, take a look at my bio. Here's my free book, and it's available for you. I mean, it's free to you. I am selling it as well for $19.99. But, somebody who's interested in learning about real estate, I will give you a complimentary copy. I'd love to meet with you if you're here in Connecticut for coffee, for breakfast, for lunch, on me. Or if you're not here in Connecticut, request my book. I'll definitely send you a digital copy and so forth. All right. So hopefully you got a better understanding about the insider secrets to selling your property for the most money possible, for top dollar, and in the best time frame for you. All right. So that's everything I got for you. I hope you're having an amazing day. I'll definitely, hopefully, talk to you during the week as well. If you need me, call me 860-558-2122. Let's talk about what you need, how I can help you. And of course, you know who I am, Rob Rosa, signing out. Hopefully, your favorite real estate broker. All right, my friends, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.